Blessed day, soul family. Welcome back. We just had a holiday weekend, Memorial Day weekend, interestingly, because we will be discussing the aspects of war and decision making. So, the Martial Mystic Calendar Series 2026, and we are in May. Today is the 26th of May. Happens to be a Tuesday this year. We're going to be talking about the Tao Te Ching. This is chapter 31, Quelling War, Ceasing Aggression. In addition, we're going to look at May's calendar poetry, and then along these lines, we'll be discussing the misfortunes of war, the Tao, and the Yi, the wisdom mind. So let's dive in. Let's get right into it. I think we'll start with the May poetry as May is coming to a close, and we'll be looking at another line of poetry come June. What do we have? So, when the physical body does not move, the shin, the emotional mind, will be peaceful automatically. When the shin does not move, the shen will abide automatically, the shen being the spirit. That is from the complete book of principal contents of human life and temperament. Again, when the physical body does not move, the emotional mind will be peaceful automatically. When the emotional mind does not move, then the spirit will abide automatically. So you can argue with that and say, and I would argue with that often and say that, well, when the body is still, then the mind can activate. The thoughts can seem like they can't get still. They can't stay still, and the thoughts don't cease. And when you sit and still the body, the activity of the thoughts in the mind can become more apparent and more on notice, more front burner. For some people, they don't like that. They don't like that. Um, they don't want to be with their own thoughts. And so this is the aspect of cultivation, practice, and persistence and diligence and discipline with regard to meditation, contemplation, Qigong, and even Taiji Chuan. So the next quote we're looking at is for today's Taiji calendar series for May 26th, and it comes from the Tao Te Ching, this beautiful interpretation of Qigong. It doesn't, it doesn't get it. There we go. This one, the Tao Te Ching. It's just a mirage. It doesn't exist. I'll be reading you Dr. Young's Qigong interpretation, but it says here that strong armed forces are tools of misfortune, disliked by the people. Thus, those who possess the Tao will not deploy them. Those noble men, when at home, value the left, and while deploying the armed forces, value the right. Armed forces are tools of misfortune, not noblemen's tools, used only when necessary. Tranquility should be the first priority. Though victorious, be without glory. Those who are glorified are those who like to kill people. Those who like to kill people will not achieve their ambitions in this world. Auspicious matters are appropriate on the left, while inauspicious matters are appropriate on the right. We'll get to looking at that. Lieutenant generals are positioned on the left, While the chief generals are positioned on the right, war should be regarded as a funeral. The many who were killed should be mourned with sadness, even in victory. War should be regarded as a funeral. Chapter 31 in the Tao Te Ching, Quelling War and Ceasing Aggression. So currently, we have a flare-up in the Middle East. Iran is the place of awareness. The Strait of Hormuz is the place of awareness right now, where there is a disagreement, there is dispute, and well, there's Russia, there's Ukraine, there is political upheaval left and right in the United States, well, even in other countries. The progressive movement versus the what is it? The conservative movement. However, with the Qigong interpretation, what we do and what Dr. Yang does is gives us this small universe application. The small universe, remember, is the individual. It's the individual body. It's the small universe made up of the heaven, man, and earth, which equates to the middle, upper, and lower energy center in the uh, Qigong classics. So let me just find that. But let's read this here first. The general on the right is the one who makes decisions. Advisors who offer advice on the left and cool down and are the ones that cool down aggressive actions. So they said those who are glorified are those who like to kill. Let's see, auspicious matters are appropriate on the left. So advisors who offer advice on the left cool down aggressive actions. That's auspicious. The inauspicious matters are appropriate on the right side. The general on the right is the one who makes decisions. In Qigong practice, the general is the emotional mind, the Shin, while the advisors are the wisdom mind, the Yi. The emotional mind makes your thinking and actions aggressive, but often out of focus. There's like fuel to the fire, but the fire is not contained. It's not it's not focused and it's not controlled. So that means that it can, get out of balance. It can you can lose it from your grasp. So let's continue. With the wisdom mind's assistance, you'll be able to keep your momentum, but on the correct path. When you practice Qigong, you must have patience, strong will, and perseverance. So we often talk about yang spirit and yin spirit. Yang spirit is more likened to the emotional aggression that comes out that makes it easy to get something done. It makes it easy to say your piece. It makes it easy to accomplish the task and be outcome oriented. But borrowing from conflict resolution, we oftentimes can sacrifice our relationships and move out of a interconnected relationship mode into a into an active sort of get things done, accomplish things, check things off the list. Outcome based is what we call it. So the yang spirit can influence the outcome base. However, there's a relationship model and a relationship base, which we could say is a little bit more of the yin spirit. So the yin spirit can accomplish things. The yin spirit is more of the slow and low fire, where the yang spirit is more of that, it's more of the grill, it's more of that high heat skillet psh, fire. So it's more ideal to have a yin spirit and have a long game. And in that way, you can make slow incremental steps while making adjustments. In the yang spirit, you just bam, go for the outcome, regardless of who you um, who you affect along the way of getting your outcome. When you practice Qigong, you must have patience, strong will, and perseverance. However, you cannot be emotional. Often the emotional mind is the cause of Qigong injury. Very important. Why is it important to look at the emotion and Qigong? Last week, we looked at how my teacher talks about in Qigong practice, uh, what is the number one thing to look at? What is the number one block? What's the number one speed bump, the number one um, marker? It's the emotional mind. If you're if you drive fast because you're pissed off, you're likely going to hit someone or injure yourself or someone else, right? Fast, you're emotional. In the same way, Qigong is the same. Or let's say you're running, or let's say you're running down a track or on a treadmill and you push yourself because you've just got so much energy to get out, you're gonna feel it the next day. So it's often the cause of Qigong injury. Lifting too much weight, you're emotional or you're in grief or you're in pain or you're pissed and you lift too much weight and you end up popping or hurting something as a result. So, like I said last week, we looked at how Dr. Young talks about how the emotional mind is the one thing that you have to look at, neutralize, and master in order to move forward and progress with your Qigong practice. When you use the army, which is aggression, when you use aggression, usually you have a problem. If you don't have any problem, you should not have an aggressive attitude in your Qigong practice. Aggressive practice is harmful and should not be encouraged. It often brings harm. But when it is necessary, aggressive Qigong has to be deployed. For example, if you have already had lung cancer or breast cancer, then your Qigong practice would be aggressively targeted on healing. Even after you have resolved the problem, you must remain in a state of high alertness and awareness, deploying the wisdom mind's attitude and treat things like you still have cancer. You'll then be able to prevent it from happening again. The emotional mind is aggressive but decisive in action. The wisdom mind is calmer and executes the policy more gently and wisely. If you're able to coordinate the emotional mind with the wisdom mind, then you will be on the correct path of Qigong practice. Again, he says, those lieutenant generals are humble and position themselves on the yang side, which is the left, because they don't have the power of killing. However, those supreme generals are noble and position themselves on the right side because they have authority to kill. Those advisors or lieutenant generals who offer advice to the leaders are positioned on the left. War or killing is serious and should be decided by the chief general or the lord who's positioned on the right. So the left and the right thing, that's not the crux of the issue here. It's more so the emotional mind, the aggression, the intention, and the amount of energy at one time that you put into something. And then it's also the matters of your tools. What tools do you have to deploy to get something done? And if it's the case of dispute resolution, and you employ weaponry to get your way, that's going to be non-auspicious. That's not in alignment with the Tao. What we're looking at here with the Tao Te Ching is how to uh, go with the way of nature. And I mean, I guess you could argue that nature is warlike or it's animalistic, it's kill or be killed. However, the human species has the capacity to transcend its animal instincts and utilize the executive center. I think they attribute that to the frontal lobe that is required or utilized for rational thought. Humans have the ability to have the rational thought and say, I don't need to kill this person for food or for safety or to get even or out of spite or because I feel threatened or I'm challenged or they said something wrong. Animals, on the other hand, they kill and eat because that is the realm that they live in. However, humans have this capacity for rational thought, dispute resolution. Of course, if you're being threatened in real time, you're going to use what nonviolence communication calls the protective use of force. You're going to defend yourself, your family, and your loved ones and friends. Naturally, yes. Protective use of force, yes. But now, when you're in a position of authority and morality in making decisions that can bring about war and the cost of life and innocent lives, for example, the the use of nuclear weapons, then that really puts people on pause. I mean, we could say that we're in the third world war right now, or we could say we're on the cusp or we're reaching a threshold by which the Third World War could bloom and spring out of the Middle East right now. So, how can we use this for ourselves? On Thursday, we'll talk about conflict resolution systems. So, in my case, in the past few days, the events that I've been experiencing in my own life have challenged my emotional mind and my wisdom mind. And I've had to really keep center calm and with the practice in order not to escalate things, in order not to make things worse. And we have to use this wisdom in our own lives because it can be easy to become defensive, become triggered, and fight for what we feel is our survival, especially if we're in a fight or flight mode in the body and we're not aware of it. But if we are aware that we contribute to peace on the planet through the influence of our uh, what's at arm's length and what's in our home and what's in our community, we have the capacity and the ability to facilitate peace, one, within our minds and our hearts and our bodies, and two, within the space that we show up in. So that's the Tai Chi Tuesday for today. And we missed Mental Health Monday, holiday, Memorial Day, yesterday. So kind of weaving in a little bit of mental health in here. How would we do that? What would we say? Well, we could say that the cultivated wisdom mind is going to keep us in a more mental health capacity, where the emotional mind could stimulate more of the um, inflamed mental environment. So that's something to think about because we do have domain and we have the capacity and we have the power to build the awareness, the recognition, and ultimately the change when it comes to contributing to the peace or contributing to the war on the planet. So if we continue to understand the misfortunes of war, if we understand, um, if we can try to align ourselves with the Tao and with our higher minds, our rational thoughts, our soul connection to one another, then we can cultivate the wisdom mind, mitigate the emotional mind. And as the poetry says here, when the physical mind does not move, the shin will become peaceful. So, for example, let's say you're in a situation and you're compelled to do something, and you might move the body in a way that is going to bring about consequences that are just not good for you or for anyone else. Restraint and restraining the body to not move can then bring a seed to the potential emotional mind being calm, right? And that goes back to the poetry here. When the physical body does not move, the shin, the emotional mind, will be peaceful automatically. When the shin does not move, when the emotional mind does not move, then the spirit will abide. So if you're looking for a peaceful spirit, this is suggesting the restraint of the physical body, ultimately aligning and giving us the conditions to align with the Tao. So that's our calendar poetry and our Taiji daily poetry for today. Those, the many who were killed should be mourned with sadness. Even in victory, war should be regarded as a funeral. So when we look at how we win in our lives and the actions that we take to win in our own individual lives and endeavors, do we win at the cost of others? If so, then we win and it should be regarded as a funeral. If we can win-win, if we can all benefit, coexist, and live harmoniously, then there's no need for mourning. There's no need for grief, and there's no need for a funeral. This going back to a little bit of what we talked about in terms of grief and death and the ability to mourn and repair when it comes to maybe our personal relationship and endeavors. Can we repair? Can we build conditions for repair? Can we give one another the grace, the forgiveness, and then another opportunity to to build peace within our relationships and on the planet? It starts off in our small universe, upper energy center, heaven, lower energy center, um, earth, and then middle energy center is the um, human element, the human component. Heaven, human, and earth. So, with that, everyone, wishing you a great day. Remember to embrace the woo and may your chi flow smoothly. See you back again tomorrow for Wellness Wednesday. Take care, Godspeed, and God bless.